Well, thank you for joining us for this May's edition of the Founders First Fireside Chat series. And I have excited to have as our keynote speaker, Bob Bingham, investor, philanthropist, and founder of SimpleNet. We'll get started in 1 minute. So Darcy came up too.
Oh yeah, what happens during these 1 minutes? Are you running ads?
No, not on this version of it, but perhaps when we have it on podcasts.
Got it.
Yeah. All of the things that you do to build content and tell story, it's like, welcome to what is this, version 4.0? Because, right. You and I were there in version 1.0. Some
seminar store. I told you there was a guy who's working on a company that's very similar to what Seminar Source did.
Yes, I know. It's when I tell people about that model, it's like, gosh, you know what? There's not a business that does that. And it's like, no, there's not. Yeah, there's not.
Sometimes it's not great to be first.
Yeah, it's not. They say when you're first, you get the arrows in their back.
Yeah, and in the front.
Yes. All right. Well, welcome to this May's edition of the Founders First Fireside Chat. I'm excited to have as our keynote speaker, Mr. Bob Bingham. He's an investor, philanthropist, and founder of SimpleNet. But before we get started, I want to thank our sponsors who make this possible. National University program sponsors are the America's Small Business Development Center and our sister company, the Founders First Community Development Corporations, as well as our bank sponsors, U.S. Bank, Pacific Western Bank, Union Bank, and Citi Bank. And so next, let me share with you, I am Kim Folsom. I'm the founder and CEO of Founders First. Founders First is on one side a accelerator where we focus on growing small businesses led by diverse founders. And then on the other side, we are a direct funder of businesses led by diverse founders, and we provide advisory support. And tonight, I am super excited to have my good friend and colleague, Bob Bingham, who is the CEO and founder of SimpleNet, which was purchased by Broadcast.com and then Yahoo, to talk about his entrepreneurial journey. It still resonates in my mind, his journey, because it was both inspiration and motivation to where I am today. He used to have this button that he used to wear that would say, "Doing it with debt." And I tell so many people about his journey, but as the founder of SimpleNet, that was the low-cost web hosting in the world with customers in 100 companies. SimpleNet helped pioneer web hosting. It was purchased by Broadcast.com and then Yahoo. Since that time, Bob has gone on and become an investor and board member in many startups, and I was fortunate to have the benefit of having him as both. And he, in addition to that, he has many, many achievements where he's leveraged his expertise to help other entrepreneurs, both young and very, very young, with work he's done with San Diego Venture Partners, San Diego Foundation, Junior Achievement, as well as challenged athletes. So welcome, Bob.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you, Kim. We go back a long way, Kim.
Long way.
I don't think probably half the people who are going to ever hear this or probably weren't even born when we met.
Oh my gosh! I mean, Chris, if you could go back to the prior slide, we're gonna pause there, because yes, we began our friendship when the internet began, and the early 90s, where we were teaching senior citizens about this crazy thing called the internet. And some of you, we shared about Bob's acquisition, but and from a time frame, you have made such a significant impact in so many areas. And so in this session, we're going to cover three, specifically related to the importance of your vision, having a vision of success to build your business. Secondly, we're going to talk about the impact of alternative capital to executing a growth strategy. Third, how to identify and start relationships with potential publicly held acquisition partners. And then the last is key lessons that you learned and be willing to share about building wealth as part of achieving wealth as part of an exit. And then we'll also talk about your current role as a philanthropist and investor a bit later. But we first want to start about your entrepreneurial journey to help our audience understand the significance of your journey with SimpleNet. So let's start by asking, can you share with the audience or describe, unique nature of SimpleNet as a business and brand?
Yeah. So SimpleNet was an accident, I think, more than anything. I mean, so I had a company called Spectator Sports, which was, I started with my great good friend Jane Hancock, and we started a sports publishing business. And if you want to lose your shirt, get into publishing, especially hard magazines, like real publishing, not like electronic publishing. So we decided to start this magazine, which was essentially a sports program for universities around the country. And we were undercapitalized, and we were really good at the production of it. We were really good at selling the schools. So it was like a three-legged stool, but we didn't sell a dang ad to anybody, I don't think, ever. And so it's kind of hard to run a magazine when you don't sell advertising. And so we were cratering near the end, and I was trying to figure out other additional revenue sources for our little fledgling company. And I went up to this company called Starwave Communications, which was, at the time, they ran ESPN.com, OutsideMagazine.com, NBA.com, and a couple other accounts. And it was owned by Paul Allen, and the late Paul Allen. And so I fly up just to see if I can sell some of our sports content to these guys to try to get a check. And I walk in the office, and it was the day that they were happened to put together DreamWorks. And so I ended up riding the elevator with Katzenberg and Lucas and Paul Allen and some others. And it was a pretty interesting day. So I was more enamored by the fact that these guys were putting together $1 billion deal, and I was trying to sell some ads, or some articles and some like photos and sports content for a couple $100. And I get a tour of their little data center, which was minuscule. And this was ESPN, NBA, Outside, and they had, I don't know, I think it was, they were just launching like Oprah magazine or something, some other magazine type content thing. And they had a single T1, which for us old timers means that they had like a giant internet pipe, like huge, right? But to us.
Right. That back in the day. Yeah.
Oh my God, a T1. Like, by the way, your cell phone has way more than that now, right? But at the time, that's all that stuff came through that little pipe. And I just remember walking in the server room and realizing that all the equipment that they had on their shelf that they were paying this internet service provider was they were paying them $10,000 a month. And Paul Allen was complaining about how often the internet provider was down. And that these, if you want to make money on the internet, it's to sell the pots and the pans to the prospectors. And he's losing his ass in content. And he's telling this to Spielberg and these guys when they were in the server room. And I'm listening in, like kind of in the third row, I think, at that point, and realizing that here I am losing my ass in content, trying to make a magazine. And if I wanted to do this internet thing, I better get serious about figuring out how to sell the pots and the pans to the prospectors. And so we come back, or I come back, and I tell my partners about this, and of course we're losing our ass in content, and they had, they didn't really want to hear about it. They wanted to hear how many ads I sold or how good we did on selling our content. And needless to say, we ended up closing up Spectator Sports about 2 weeks before Christmas of 1996. Is it 96? 96. Back in the day, 1996.
Yes.
And so that's that winter, like Christmas was terrible. I had to lay off all these people and try to help people get jobs. And And it's never any fun when you're a founder of a company and you have to close it down. And I think it's a really important lesson in that there is life after that, and it can really drag you down if you don't think about what's next. So I spent that winter thinking about the internet, and this was early days, and I thought a lot about what Paul Allen said. And so when I wrote basically a little app or not an app at the time, it was programming like C. We had to actually do real programming. The kids these days, they don't understand how to really program.
I know that I used to bash, T shell, like all of that stuff.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I wrote a little shell program that configured servers and be able to put customers on the servers. And I realized that there was nothing else out there that was doing that. And we started a little hosting company called SimpleNet. And at the time, there was other people doing hosting, but it was really expensive, and it was really all over the board, and no one really had thought about, taking the discount side of it and just trying to get as many customers as possible, as fast as possible. So that's what we did with SimpleNet. We put it at $20 a month, $10 a month for the cheap one, $20 a month for the good one, which was basically, your own domain name. And it turns out that there was a company that was selling domain names called Internet Network Solutions,
Right.
which was terrible at invoicing. Like they were terrible. So if you talk about alternative, these guys were, I was selling thousands and thousands of internet domains for $100 each, and they would invoice me like every quarter or less. And so that meant I could have that money to grow my company that entire time that they didn't ask me for the money. And so it was like a kind of a vendor financing model, but sort of by accident. I love Network Solutions. They were amazing until they got their shit together. Then it wasn't so much fun because they eventually went public. But during the time before they did that, it was awesome.
Yeah, that's how we became partners with my first company, is that I could buy hosting and the domains from you at the same time. And it was so convenient for my clients.
Exactly. See?
Yeah.
But we started on a shoestring. I literally, I was on, I hate to, can I say this on here?
Yes.
I was on unemployment. I was literally like collecting a check and I was starting my company. I had no capital. Darcy had a credit card. My wife had a credit card that we had decided to freeze in the freeze. This is what you did when you didn't want to spend money, is you take your credit card, you put it in the freezer, like in ice. And so you have to really think about it as you're waiting for it to whatever, to use the card number, right? This was some strategy we saw in some lame magazine somewhere. And so I literally get that credit card out and de-thaw it and go over to UCSD bookstore. And because she worked at UCSD, and we were able to get a employee discount or a educational discount on a Sun server. And that's how we bought our first server. And that's when we were off to the races. So we literally started the company with credit cards. We had but at the same time, we were in the business of people signing up and paying every month. So recurring revenue.
Right.
And so every time Kim would sign up her clients, they would pay every month. It was
exactly.
it was amazing. And so if you want, and they did it no matter what. So everyone thought they were going to be the next Amazon, which was cool. And we certainly hoped that they would, as long as they paid their $20 a month.
Right.
And so that's how SimpleNet started.
Wow, that is unbelievable.
Okay, so that was the long version. So okay.
No, this was great. And so because I was going to ask about your business before that, but then when you talk about strategies that you use to capitalize it, you talked about credit cards, but share how you use other alternative capital to fund the growth and scale the business.
So what's interesting is we were growing so fast. We were growing at literally exponential speed, and the biggest thing we needed was capital for growth. I mean, you think that I don't know, when you run a business, you think that somehow if you continue to sell, you're going to have enough cash to be able to lay the groundwork and do the infrastructure. Turns out when you hire people, they cost money. When you need desks for those people, it costs money. When you need to have health insurance. By the way, we had Padres season tickets before we had a health plan, which was probably not the best plan. Don't do that. after health insurance and everything else, and you start, layering in people, things get expensive pretty quick. And then you start realizing like at the time, we could only put a couple hundred people on a server. So every server costs at that point in time, this is before blade servers, this is before, this is when big iron type servers, either by HP or Sun or Silicon Graphics, or I'm using words from dinosaur era.
I know people are like, what?
What are those things? Those companies, what do they make? Yeah, it's funny how old it sounds now. But yeah, I mean, a server was not unreasonable to have $100,000 server or $200,000 server with all the memory and all the network information, or the NIC cards, or whatever the hell the Ethernet card is in the back of the machine, and all that shit wouldn't cost a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
And so we reached out and we started realizing we could lease finance. So lease financing is one of those things that people would loan you money to basically lease equipment. And that was a huge thing for us when we realized that we could get companies, especially bigger companies like Cisco and Sun at the time, would help us put together lease packages for that equipment as we were growing, and we were growing really quick. And then there was companies that would do secondary lease, basically like a loan. And it turns out that the SBA is one of those people, and so we were able to do an SBA loan, which I think we're the only internet company in 1997 that did a SBA loan.
And I did one in 98. So
yeah. I mean, maybe we paved the way.
yes.
And this is at the same. So I'm doing an SBA loan, which, as Kim knows, is like giving giving away your firstborn, doing the paperwork. And our merchant account, because we're growing so fast, we had our merchant account with Wells Fargo, and I don't want to call them out, but okay, it was Wells Fargo, and they thought because we grew so fast that it was fraud, and they took $1 million out. So the way that the merchant agreement reads, they can create a reserve account, and they have to give you 3 days notice, not 3 business days, 3 days. So they tell you on Friday and they take the money on Monday. And they took $1 million out of my account. So you write your payroll checks and all your sort of vendor checks, and everything goes out on Friday, and you're empty, right? And then on Monday they want to take $1 million out of my account. And it was unbelievable. So that's when I realized that banks don't really understand the internet and how quickly things can grow. And so we really diversified how we thought about our merchant account business. So we ended up spreading it over 5 providers over time. We got to there. We never had a single point of failure on our network. We made sure that, there was not a single provider that was going to go down. At the time, it was like MCI and Sprint and I don't know, WorldCom. And remember WorldCom, the guys
exactly.
just died in jail or something.
Yeah.
But anyway, all these companies were providing these connections, and we couldn't have a downtime. So we had to have, a network that would always work. We had to have our merchant account that always worked. I always wanted to be able to bill our customers. and it was, that's how we grew the business. I mean, it was plate spinning, spinning this plate over here, then doing this one over here, then doing this one over here.
Wow. And so did you ever consider more traditional methods of funding, like equity or any of those?
So I had a really good friend who ended up helping me through the whole thing. And one of the things is having really, really good people around you. One of the things that's super important to know is what you don't know. And I didn't know anything about what to do when we wanted to sell, or how to position the company to sell. I knew that there was people for that, and that when time came, I could find those people, but I needed to have some good guidance along the way. Our business, I mean, when we first started the business, we had I knew that it was a matter of time before we were going to get bought. It was just a matter of time. Like, the business was growing so fast, and it was like, how fast can we grow, and who were the kinds of companies that might buy us? And I didn't know how long it was going to take. So the whole time along, as we were growing as fast as we could, venture-backed businesses were growing faster than we were. But if you saw how the exits were going for those venture-backed companies, the founders weren't getting super rich. It was really the venture business
Exactly.
or the public companies and all the executives that came on board to take the companies public that were getting rich. And so I had a really interesting meeting from excuse me. I have a big piece of machinery behind me that's made a bunch of noise. Um, Sorry, can you hear that? No, never mind. Anyway,
I can't hear anything in the background.
So the venture business was basically these guys were this guy tells me, if you don't have to dilute yourself, don't dilute. If you can do it with debt, grow your business as hard as you can, as fast as you can with debt, as long as you can. And when it comes time, every time you do an equity financing, it takes a third of the company.
Right.
I'm like, well, shit, I don't want to give up a third of the company. I mean, ultimately, that's what I'm going to sell. Like at the end, I only have 100% of my share. Like, let's say that me and my two partners had 100% of the shares. If we give up a third, I have to work a hell of a lot harder to try to sell my business for a higher multiple.
Mhm.
And I'm not sure that it's going to be worth it. And so that was the constant trade-off. And so as long as I was able to get sort of this alternative financing, like debt financing, whatever, I was growing at 20% a month, or then eventually 50% a month, and then 100% a month. Who gave a shit about paying 20% interest on debt for a year? 20% a year. You're like, who cares? I'll do that all day long. Like, where can I sign up? How much can I get? Like, right? And so that became sort of the driving metric. Now, there's the downside of this, which is that your partners don't necessarily always agree with you on this perception. And Kim and I have had this conversation. So when you drag someone along with debt is one of those things that people feel like they're going to come and take if this doesn't work, they're going to come and take my house. And so, yeah, okay, that does suck, and that would be terrible, but they can only take your house once. And so if they're willing to give you, like, let's say your house is worth $1 million, and they give you $5 million worth of cash, in two different tranches, who freaking cares? You got $5 million in financing, and they can only come and take your house once. So my partner did not believe in that, and so he was not nearly the risk taker that I was. So we had a little friction, and so it did create the situation where when people started calling, at least I returned their calls. Like, I wasn't going to return anyone's call until we got to sort of a certain run rate. And I started returning calls fairly soon after he started having some friction around that. Yeah, so that was definitely a thing.
So you started SimpleNet in 1996.
1996, before, in the last millennia.
Right, in 1996. And then you sold in 1999.
Yep.
And over that time, you funded it largely with debt.
All debt.
All debt.
Never took any equity financing.
And so this was not your first company, because you talked about the Spectator Sports.
Yeah.
Did your other two co-founders, did they understand the value of, keeping equity, lack of dilution?
No, they do now.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
No, I mean, I think we actually had this conversation because we had a venture guy, friend of ours. I mean, it's sort of a tangential friend, came and said, hey, you guys could probably raise, this much money. And so my partner, who was super technical and was worried about the servers crashing all the time, and was worried about the Cisco routers and worried about all the network, he thought, oh my God, I could build an amazing network with all that money. That's kind of how he was thinking about it. And he was right. He could build an amazing network. I'm trying to build a profitable network. Right. And so I think he would have never had a clue what he was giving up if he would have just given up a third of the company at that time. Right. Mm-hmm. So but I mean, God love him. I mean, he was building my network, and he had to worry about that stuff, because I'm worried about trying to keep everybody fed. By the way, we didn't pay ourselves. This was all like
Oh, I remember that because I remember the conversation
I
when
think
you,
I probably had to have you drive to lunch because I don't think I my car. I think
because you had
Rich
talked
and I were
about, you
splitting
know
the
what,
car.
this is what our salaries are. They're all the same, and we're staying at this point.
Yeah,
Um, and this is, even though that was, 96 to 99, all of those things are so, so relevant, because we're going to talk about the rest of the story, but not yet, because
it's
next, the
almost
other
100 years
the other
old. Yeah,
superpower that we're going to talk about is you are a king of biz dev partner strategies. And so I want to talk about how you use partnerships and business development to drive customer acquisition. You had these servers to get, host people, by the time you sold, what, you had 500,000 customers. What
lots
did
of
you
customers.
do to build, to get to that, 20% growth, 50% growth, 100, because you did it with partnerships.
We did. Yeah. So, you know, w- anything and everything that came along in the marketing space, we were interested in doing and trying, and we created our own ad network. So we were DoubleClick before DoubleClick, or serving our own ads. And along the way, you meet a lot of people who are doing the same kinds of things. And so we also realized the power of our own customers. So we had there was something that came up recently that was kind of plotting the history of the internet, and how much network traffic has grown over the years, and then who provided the traffic. So it was like this sort of graph of showing, like, how much Google takes now, and then kind of and then Yahoo used to take this much, and then kind of boiling it back down. And at one point, SimpleNet was we actually controlled about a third of all the internet traffic in the world came off of our customers' sites.
Mhm.
And just our customers alone, we did an ad campaign with them, just said, like, hey, if you guys can deliver these things, you guys can earn free accounts. And it was remarkably successful. I mean, just asking our own customers to be to talk about us. That was a huge promotion. I would call Jerry Yang back in the early days of Yahoo, and we would buy all the extra internet advertising at the end of the month. So literally, it was like this was spoilage. This was when contracts. I feel like an old timer now. Or in the early days, it was a balance sheet item, and you would have advertising, and you had to sell it by like the 20th for the start on the 1st, right? And if you didn't, so it sort of goes into the bargain bin, and assholes like me would come along, and we'd buy as much as they had left, but we would never pay full price. And so Jerry, would if I got a call from Jerry, I knew that they were running a little low that month, and they needed to be able to like prop up the thing. So we would buy, 500,000 sites, or I forget how. And we would sign an NDA about what we paid per cost per thousand to run those ads, and we would run them off of our service. We were running. We knew we did a lot of really sort of sophisticated ad tracking stuff back before all that stuff became really interesting.
Yes, before the other guy that we know, Mr.
Yeah.
Website Story, used to do
Oh
all the
yeah.
track.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Blaze. Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
So early days, right? So and then, like, partnership wise, I mean, we did stuff with oh gosh, what's the book, the Dummies book guy.
Oh, for dummies. Uh-huh.
Yeah, we did, and then there was another publisher who was publishing HTML for books, and we did a huge deal with them. And then we actually tried to put in a great. In fact, I'm looking. Hold on. You're gonna love this. It's awesome. I can't believe I'm sitting in this room where I actually have this. So we actually tried to create a physical product.
Oh, yes. I remember that. You took that to one of the presentations. Yes.
So we actually put this on the shelf at like CompUSA, which of course is gone.
Right.
And where else? Best Buy. It was in Costco. I did a Costco thing. We did. Yeah. So if you want to lose your ass in, if you're an internet company and you really want to get your ass handed to you, try to go do a physical product in a physical store and pay for stocking fees and all that stuff. It'll just hurt your brain in a lot of ways, and your pocketbook, and you won't make any money. But I still have this really cool box, which right now
Yes.
looks for you guys upside backwards. But anyway.
So it sounds like when you talk about some of the partnerships that you did, you had the relationship with Yahoo early on. Um,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and then what?
Well, because we pushed so much data, so they were indexing our sites, and so we had a back channel to try to help them index our servers, and so yeah, so by accident, when you're early, you become part of the fabric of how the internet works, and these relationships all built. Alta Vista, same way. Lycos, I mean, this is wait, more dinosaurs. Lycos, Alta Vista, what
Yeah,
was it called?
Yahoo even.
Yahoo even. Oh, sorry, yeah, Yahoo even. Yeah.
Wow. So what about you went through your acquisition, again, 96 to 99. Your initial acquisition was by broadcast.com. How
Right.
did that relationship come about?
So there was a thing called Media Metrics that was the sort of the Nielsen of the internet, and I don't know what the hell happened to them. I don't know if they're still around or not. I've lost track. But they basically kind of published who were the biggest publishers on the internet. And Yahoo was on there, broadcast.com was on there. And when broadcast went public, that was the kind of their claim to fame was their media metric rank. Oh, and Blue Mountain Arts. Remember
Yes,
Jared, right? So
the
from
um,
Blue Mountain
the
Arts. So,
the gift greeting cards.
yeah, correct. It was like online greeting cards, and it was like us, Blue Mountain Arts, Yahoo, Broadcast, and some others. And so when Mark Cuban basically went down a list of all the companies that were doing, um, that he could acquire after he went public, because he had this big stack of cash, he wanted to go make acquisitions. We popped up on the list, and so he calls me.
Wow. Did you have any relationship with him prior to that?
Did not. Although, yeah, did not. Did not. There was a little connection way back when I was doing the sports publishing business, because they were trying to figure out how to do uh, um,
Streaming of.
like the radio play by play for
Mhm.
football games and basketball games or whatever on broadcast.com, early days.
Wow. So how did that conversation go? What made you uh consider, I mean, because as you said, you got lots of calls because you were
Yeah,
growing 20, 50, 100% period over period.
a month. Um, so again, so in the back of my head, I have my partner, one of my tech guy and my partner telling me, he's feeling the obligations of all this debt financing that Bob keeps layering on. Of every time I have to have him sign something, he just freaks out and a little bit more. And for me, I'm giggling and laughing because I only have a condo and he's actually got a house, and so he could lose his house and I'm going to lose a condo. Like, I'm kind of giggling and he's like, I don't know what to do. Oh my god. And then so yeah, I mean, we took the call. I mean, it was like hey Bob, I think you guys are pretty highly ranked and we haven't talked on the phone, and are you guys interested in selling? And I had, at that time, I probably had 3 or 4 kind of over the transom offers from other ISPs. So back in the day, so okay, this is for like a little education. Early days, there was these things called modems, and you'd have to like use your phone, and it was you would connect your phone line, and it would beep boop beep beep boop boop, and you'd connect. And so ISPs basically had banks of telephone, like these routers that would connect you to the internet using your telephone, your
Yes,
landline.
back in the day.
Okay, and so we were batched into this company, into this category of ISP, but we weren't an ISP. We were an ISP without the modems. We didn't do any of that. So if you can imagine, in those days, if it didn't work, you would call up and you complain and you try to get the tech on the phone, and they try to help you out why your modem wasn't working or connecting. And there was a million settings to do, and it was really hard. It was really, really hard. And I didn't want anything to do with that. So when we created web hosting company, you had to already be on the internet
Right.
to be our customer.
Mhm.
Like, I didn't give a shit how you got on the internet. I don't care where you connected, but we weren't going to do any modems. And so, but a couple of these modem companies realized the growth business was going to be in hosting, because that's where the business was going. And so they were trying to acquire companies like us. And so we had a couple of companies that tried to do that, but the metrics were all based on number of customers, and then that was it. It was just based on customers. There was no synergy. There was no real upside. And I think the broadcast.com deal to us had that upside, had some other upside that didn't relate necessarily to number of customers. And the metric wasn't that. It was the synergy of creating, doing broadcast quality. I mean, basically YouTube. We wanted to be YouTube, but this is before Flash. It was before YouTube. So it was trying to figure out how to do that. We had built a huge network doing what we were doing. And so the two pieces together, after this public company comes together, and the fact that we were profitable, made a huge piece. Oh, by the way, we were profitable. Oh, did I mention that? Yeah, we were profitable.
And you owned 100% of your company, and you were profitable.
Right. And we were profitable.
Yes.
And all I had is a bunch of debt payments, which was easy because I had cash flow.
Right.
So let's go back. Let's talk about one thing. How much time do I have? Cash flow. So everyone wants your company to be accrual based because that's the accounting standard. And I would say, and Kim's probably going to kick me under the table here. Cash basis is the way you should run your business, because cash basis is cash flow, and it's easy to understand. So if someone prepays you for an entire year of service, let's say, they're paying you $100 for the year, and you use your first month. Your first month is an accrual. That's income, right? But you actually have to take that money that they didn't use and put that into a liability, because now you have to pay that. You have to earn that out. And so when you show your P&L to your banker trying to get another loan, that sucks, because now you have your liabilities are so high because you have their cash.
Right.
Their cash is your liability. Why is that your liability? It should not be your liability.
Right.
That's why they don't let me teach accounting.
Well, so it's so exciting to relive this experience, because I always tell people, we both are San Diego State alums, and tell people about, what if other things that I could have done when you were in the midst of those transactions. You had said, Kim, why don't you let me buy some seminar source? And I was like, no, I'm going to raise equity. I mean, if nothing else, people on this line, you've got to know this man, as I said, superpowers, not just of how he ran and grew SimpleNet, but he did it with debt and managed with cash flow. And I should have, as I said, this was woulda, coulda, shoulda.
Oh, well, you're too sweet, but
yeah,
it was good times. It was good times.
After
what do you know? I mean, we didn't know shit. And we went to San Diego State. They didn't teach us crap.
Well, hey, now we wouldn't have probably even gotten in it.
I couldn't get in there. There's no way.
So you were.
By the way, they always return your call when you have a lot of money. They always want to ask you for money. So.
Oh yeah, yes. So you were acquired by broadcast.com, but how long after the broadcast.com acquisition did the Yahoo acquisition happen?
I think you and I were at lunch when that happened, actually.
Exactly.
So we were back in the day. They used to do this thing called Rule 144, which was like a reverse merger. So
and you could get a credit for accretive acquisitions.
That's right. So Broadcast recasted their financials to show our profitability. So immediately after our acquisition, the stock doubled. They split the stock and then doubled again. But I'll say I don't think they do those anymore. But it was a really interesting conversation to have when PricewaterhouseCoopers and about 400,000 other lawyers were on the phone trying to figure out why we wrote off Girl Scout cookies, and when my Padres season tickets to the company back in the early days of when we were first starting out, because it was accredited and it was going backwards in time, not just forwards in time. It was a really interesting conversation, and how expensive that call was, just the call to try to deal with, what category are we going to put cookies in.
Mhm.
And it was just a funny little anecdote. But anyway, what was your question? I'm sorry.
No, I was just going to say
Now
the
made me
time
laugh.
frame between broadcast.com
Oh.
to Yahoo.
Yeah, so we did so we're sitting around probably, I don't know, like maybe 6 months later, and I get a call from it was I think it was Jeff Mallet at Yahoo asking us if we were going to hit our quarterly number, and I'm like, well, we're a public company now, and I don't know if I can answer that question. Uh, but how are you guys doing? What's going on? He goes, well, there's some news. You're going to hear some news. It's going to be coming out, we're just doing a little due diligence on, making sure that everything's all together and whatever. And I'm like, I read between the lines. I'm like, oh, okay. So this could be interesting. And so he was the CEO at the time
Mhm.
Of Yahoo. And so the next day it was announced, and the Yahoo ended up buying broadcast.com.
That is just unbelievable, because so many people look at the rest of that was the making of, Mark Cuban, or should I say
Correct.
the public anointing of him with regards to that process. But
Correct.
it was SimpleNet's profitability and performance that helped increase the value, because one of the slides that we had is about the announcement of when you got acquired by
Correct.
broadcast.com, and then 6 months later you guys were acquired by Yahoo. It was just an amazing.
Yeah, I was curious. I saw this earlier. I was curious where you got that slide. That's
cool. You know me, I was going to find as much information as I can.
Awesome.
But it's just unbelievable, beyond this. And the other thing that is so, Bob looks like a baby now, but at the time you were 29.
Yeah, well, I was 31. I missed it by a year. I was trying to retire for the first time at 30, and that was the goal. But
Wow.
31.
What the heck is a year? What's the heck of a year? Next, I wanted to talk about, when you think of a transaction like this, and you personally, because this is just, mind-boggling, because there's all the stress that you're going through, and managing your co-founders and the business and all this other stuff. What type of team did you put in place to help you have this be a good outcome for you?
That's a good question. Pre-acquisition or post?
Both.
So pre is having a really solid relationship, I think, is super key to any of this. I had a loving wife who had a real job and knew that I would never work for anyone else, and who had my back, right? And that, and then cheerleaders along the way who helped knock down some of the harder things, which was, finding a banking relationship, business mentors along those lines. Cause I remember I had just created a business, and one of my board members from that business, and I became close, and he really helped, and kicks himself for not investing in this business, because I had asked him for money, and he said, Bob, I think you could do it with just debt, because this is when I showed him my projection. But always having a really good backstop to sort of keep you honest around that stuff. And then post is realizing every single investment bank, as soon as they realize you have money, comes and pitches you on there, to be your new private banker. And it's a little discouraging how predatory that side of the world is. And there's so many investments and so many ways to spend your money. And so having a level head and just understanding that you're not, lightning struck for you, it doesn't make you really smart. It just means that you were really fucking lucky. Mm-hmm. And you have to be doubly smart the next time. And so I've seen so many people go off the rails right after they have their big event. Yeah. And it's just fraught with peril at that point. I think, money just makes you more of what you already are. And so if you're already an idiot, you're going to be a really big idiot.
Yes, exactly. And to go through and look at, here this is, well past 20 years that this happened, and
Right.
still, be, retired based on what you want to do, not not otherwise.
Correct.
Yep.
Yeah.
So
I tried retiring a couple other times too. It wasn't nearly as fun. Yeah.
so how did you address fear and risk as you went through your milestones with SimpleNet?
Gosh, I was scared every day. Uh, I'll tell you, I think employees scared me more than anything. I mean, you realize you're really playing with people's lives when you hire people, and there's a responsibility that comes with that. And when we started this business, it was very flippant and sort of, oh my gosh, if 100 people sign up, this would be awesome business, and then it was like, oh, if 1,000 people sign up, that'd be really, really awesome. And then 1,000 people a week are signing up. You're like, oh shit, now what? And it takes people. Um, and I think the having lots of mouths to feed feeds fed my anxiety around the fact that my realization that I was not a great manager. Like I'm really good up to like 30 people, and then you realize you have to start hiring people that manage other people, and that's a huge inflection point for companies, especially for founders, to realize like, what do you do now when you have to hire middle management, and that's just as a founder, you're like, what the hell? You're really getting far away. You're getting far away from the customer and your relationship with understanding what's going on in the business, and all that really changes. And that was a trend. Luckily, I mean, look, our company only lasted 3.5 years. So what do I know? But people who in businesses that I've been involved with on the board, you can see the transition, and it's been, it's really, really difficult for founders to go through that.
If you had to do it over again, what might you do differently?
Take other people's money. No, kidding. Kidding. No, I'm kidding. Uh, uh, well, I mean, look, I think, what would I have done differently? I think we would have done more points of presence in our network. I think I would have let my engineer have more say in how we built the network out and how big, how much bigger we could have made it. 'Cause I think there was we did a lot of early fiber work. And I think we could have really accelerated that. And I think there would have been a lot of synergy around a lot of other things that happened later down the line, as we started getting into DSL and some other things, which another dinosaur technology. It was hot at the time.
And when you made the transition from running SimpleNet to investor philanthropist, how was that for you?
It was great. I got really fat.
And then
Literally.
you went and became a cyclist.
Well, yeah, I had to do something because I was killing myself with food. It's really easy to just live on the limb, lots of chicken dinners, lots of people telling you how smart you are. Um, um, and there was a time when I thought I wanted to be an investor and really invest in a lot of companies, and so I saw probably a business plan a day, which is a lot of deal flow, and at the time, and I thought I was just the shit, but it's a lot of work too, um, and I just realized that the investments that I made, where I really just that I really liked the people and the team. Uh, I thought that I realized that the companies that I invested in, where the people were the people, that was the reason I was involved, were the ones that were successful. And so I just took away this whole layer of sort of granularity that I would sift through deals with. Because I had a team. I had a finance person and a partnerships person, and we looked at lots of stuff, and we would try to score things. We came up with matrix, and every one of those deals is done, like dusted. I have really expensive T-shirts in my closet. I should have worn one, by the way. That would be, of $1 million T-shirts that I have that are awesome, but that's all I have is a fucking $1 million and a share certificate that's worth nothing. It's not, I could probably pad them together and make like, notepads out of them or something, all the share certificates. And so, but the people, the companies and things that I did, whether the person was the person in that company or whether they went on later, if you follow the people, that's the gold. That to me was the gold of the relationships. And Kim is one of those people.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So what advice might you give to our audience about some of the strategies we talked about, vision for success? Like when you started SimpleNet, you got it to 500,000 customers. Did you think have that vision when you first started?
No, like I said, I literally thought, if this thing works, if we get a couple hundred customers, we'll see how it works, we'll see how it goes. And there was, remember that ad? I forget who the company was that had that ad. It was at the time. It was like, we put up our website and then all of a sudden we get like one order, like a little ticker, right? Click over like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and they were all excited and they're like, oh shit. And that's kind of what happened to us. I mean, we couldn't configure enough servers fast enough for all the customers that were signing up. We were really good at the advertising, so much so that my partner would come in and say, stop the ads. And I'd say, not going to happen. And he'd say, but you have to, because we don't have enough servers. I said, get enough servers.
Wow.
And so, yeah, I mean, it was, I used the Niagara Falls analogy. Like we were literally drinking from Niagara Falls. It was about how big your mouth can get. There was plenty of water. Like there's plenty of customers coming down the Niagara Falls. So how big your mouth can get in bladder control, right? And so many companies just, they either had a really big mouth and no bladder, or all bladder and no mouth, or whatever. But we sort of figured it out.
Wow. And what about leveraging alternative funding strategies as opposed to this whole hype around equity?
Well, okay, so I'm sure that you guys have decks on this, right? But you take the pizza, right? And it's all about how big the pizza gets. And it's your fucking pizza because you started the company.
Right.
And so you get to decide who gets to have the slice of pizza.
Mm-hmm.
And your pizza only gets bigger as you grow your business.
Right.
And so if you do an equity round early, you've given up a big slice of your pizza, a third of your pizza. I don't know. This is my rule. I don't know. Everyone's rule is a little different. Could be 20%, could be 30, 40%, whatever. But it's about that every time you do a round of equity. And so if you can do debt, you don't have to slice your pizza.
Right. You get to keep the whole pizza.
You get to fucking keep your whole pizza. And so you can pay for the toppings later,
Exactly.
So that's it. What
pizza for everybody? You get a pizza.
It's pizza. I don't know. I love pizza.
Yes, I do too. And when you think about the advice that you might give to the 21-year-old Bob Bingham about his future, what would it have been?
I would have said marry Darcy for sure. I think keep riding my bike, even though I didn't want to. Like startups are terrible for your health. One of the questions you had in there that you didn't say, which
self-care.
Self-care.
That's coming.
Okay. Well, I'll just skip ahead then. Self-care is bullshit. When you're doing a startup, your fucking startup, and it's your pizza. And so you do whatever you fucking have to do for your pizza. Right. It's not, you are not, who gives a shit if you can make yoga or not? I am so tired of people who are not committed to their own future. Like I work my ass off for three or 4 years, and I don't have to work the rest of my life.
Right.
So fuck Zumba, go out and work hard.
Right.
Sorry, can I swear on here?
Oh no,
did you bleep it out?
It's Chris, not ABC.
Chris is probably cracking up and laughing right now, trying to figure out.
So when you think about what do you do for fun?
I try to make some wine, so I did that. We ski a lot. I surf a little bit. I ride bikes. I used to race bikes way back in college, and so I started racing bikes again when I'm in my 50s. So I'm one of the mammals, middle-aged men in Lycra, as you see riding down the coast. But yeah, I mean, life's too short, and we've traveled a lot. Darcy and I travel a ton.
Right,
So,
right. So I asked you a lot of questions. What message would you like to leave that I didn't happen to cover?
grow your fucking pizza. Wait, besides that one. What did you not cover? Hire, who you hire is really, really important. And you can't, I don't think you can look at a resume online. You have to do references and you have to check people out, and key people are so important, and the synergy that you have with them is everything, because they have to have your back, and you have to assume when the shit's hitting the fan that they're going to do the right thing. And I've just seen too many companies that either people aren't who they say they are, or they are don't have the horsepower to go the distance, or whatever it is that you've hired them to do, or can't pivot into something that would be just as amazing in some other capacity for your company. So it's people are everything.
Yeah, it is. It is. It's so
But
important.
but how awesome is it that you can create a company, uh, grow that company, have really good, amazing people around you. Life's too short to work with assholes, so pick really good people that you want to be with.
Mhm.
It's your family, right?
Right.
It's your work family.
Mhm.
Um, Work super hard and have a payoff that has multiples,
Mhm.
um, and that's amazing. I mean, it's
Wow.
amazing, right?
Well, I tell you, this only took us 20 plus years to do this,
I know,
but
right?
thank you so much, Bob, for sharing your expertise in your journey. As I said, you were been such an inspiration of doing it with debt. When I looked at, it only took me 7 times to go through and use this mantra for people to be, as you just said, it's your pizza. Keep ownership and don't give a slice away to somebody else.
No, not if you don't have to.
And you
There's
don't.
times, but it has to be later after you've grown it and you have a
Right,
position of strength. I mean,
right,
yeah,
right, right. Well,
awesome.
I'm going to let you go. Thank you
Yeah.
so much, Bob. I so appreciate it. Good luck with your event.
Thank
And
you.
for those that are still with us, I want to let you know that our next webinar will be coming up on the 27th, how to adjust your revenue model to drive customer adoption and attract investors. Our speakers are Elaine Swan, Paul Wynn, and Lisa Scott. So visit us at Founders First CDC to register. Thanks, everyone, and have a fantastic Monday evening. Good night.
Thanks, Kim. Thank you.
Thanks.